Hi all, thank you for joining us today. And in today's session, we are going to talk about Zoho Creator, what Zoho Creator is, how Deluge as a low-code scripting language is enhancing uh, its capabilities with Zoho Creator. So let's get started with a small introduction of what Zoho Creator is, what are the capabilities of Zoho Creator. And up until the earlier 2021, we had C5, where we were having the low code application development as a prime focus for Creator. You can build your business applications by dragging and dropping the fields and forms, and we can configure the workflow so that we get a automation part. And after the advent of C6, a lot of additional features came into play. We brought in a few extra features, we enhanced a few existing features of Zoho Creator. Okay. So the three main focus on C6, right? So while we are building an application using C6, we had three main focus. One is development, one is deployment, and another one is management. So the development part is where the low-code application development comes into play. We also brought in two additional features where we can build analytics and we can also build integrations flow. Everything can be done with the low-code drag and drop features. And we also have the option to maintain our deployments. We have separate servers for development, separate servers for staging, and separate servers for production, which will allow the developers and testers to have the freedom to check the application which has been created with variety of data without disturbing the actual live data which is being handled. And this makes it more data security compliance and data privacy compliant. And then we also know the creator applications which we are building are actually cross device capable and cross platform capable. So the application which we are building for mobile, the application which we are building for web is also compatible for the mobile and tablet access by default. Okay. So Zoho Creator applications are cross-platform and cross-device capable. We don't have to do any specific configurations to make them accessible properly in mobile and tablet. But there are a few customizations which can be made for mobile and tablet, which will make it very convenient or enhance the options which are available for mobile and tablet as well individually. Okay. So normally in Creator we have development, deployment, and management. Where under development we have solutions and microservices. So the solutions is the part where we will be building, and microservices is the part where we will be connecting our applications to other third-party sources or other products of Zoho. And we also have a few other options in microservices. We'll be trying to discuss them in a different session. We also have deployment and management. Today we are going to focus more on the solutions part. Okay. So this is the overall component wise split up. We have app creator, integration creator, BI analytics creator, business process creator, and robotic process creator is on the way. Okay. And then we have microservices, connections, data sources, AI models, AR, VR, everything is there, serverless function. So we have recently brought in the augmented reality capability of Zoho Creator. Then we have deployment. So we have different life cycles. We have based mobile apps which can be built specifically to get integrated to one application of Creator. And we also have the portal where we can add all the customer portals which is required. This is followed by the management. We have users, organizations, governance, operations, and monitoring. Okay. So exploring about the solutions, we have app creator, which is the low code application building section. Then we have integration creator, which is the low code analytics. We have integration creator, which is the low code integration builder, where you can integrate your creator application with other sources. And then we have BI and Analytics Creator, which will allow you to build intuitive dashboards with the help of drag and drop solutions. We also have Business Process Creator, which is currently the blueprint. We have Robotic Process Creator, which is on the way. We'll be having a separate session once it is there. Okay. So, if you want to create a application in Creator, these are the components which are to be handled. We have form, we have reports, page, workflows, and mobile. Okay, so the forms are the entry points where you can pass the data into the system. Then we have reports where we can visualize the data which is there in the form. We have pages where we can bring out a highly intuitive information about the data which is being handled. Then we have the workflows. The workflows are the part where we actually harness the entire power of Deluge. Workflows are mostly written to automate processes. Okay, so there'll be batches of scripts which are being written at multiple places and they get triggered on multiple events that on a whole gives a single powerful automation. So when we take a look at it, okay, that's where Deluge is used extensively. Although Deluge can be used in the reports to enable certain actions, we can have custom functions which can be tethered to one or more records available. We also can use Deluge in pages where we have custom UI components, and these custom UI components can be built using HTML or XML, and they get integrated with Deluge, and they will help you to interact with your creator forms and reports regularly. Okay. Then we have mobile, which is customization specific for mobile. So it is a application which you can understand how a creator component can be accessed from a mobile device and how it behaves and what are the extra features which can be added, right? And as we discussed, we have the business process creator, which is blueprint, where we can visually take a look at the application or the business process which we are trying to automate. And then we have Zoho Analytics and Zoho Flow. This entire setup constitutes to the C6 version. So we are not getting into the details of C6 now. We are going to understand how Creator actually harnesses Deluge. Okay. So the main reason we try to bring Deluge into Creator is to bring in automation. Let me show you the previous example. So this is the example where we created the budget approval system. So here you can see we have the custom approvals, and every time we raised a budget approval request based on the amount, right? We had the approvals allocated automatically, right? What other automations can be done? So let us say I want to approve this. So right now we don't have any status over here. Let's get into the edit mode. I'll add a status field. So getting into the, sorry, I had to get into the budget request. Let us write a small script which will help us to automate the approval process. And we'll make a combination to show you how it is. Okay. Then we'll be proceeding more in detail. So let us go ahead and, okay. So let us go ahead and add a drop down over here. Okay. So let me put a drop down at this point, and we call it as approve. Approval. Okay, let's call it as approval status. And we keep only two status over here. Approved and rejected. Approved and rejected. Okay. So now let us get into the reports. Let me get into the actions. Let's add action. We say approve. And we give the same. and we create a workflow, add a new action. So I'll write a delete script and I'll say input dot approval status equal to. Okay, so done. And I create the workflow and I'm bringing in two fields. So we have approval status already. I'll bring in the button. Okay. So let us bring the approval status a bit high so it is easy for us to see. So let me check the budget request now. So here you can see the approval status is empty as of now. If I choose to approve, okay, so let us say I'm Mark and I'm the first person I am choosing to approve. So the moment I say, you can see the approval status has been updated. The same can be done for rejection as well. You can see how powerful it is. So let us say I'm going to create one more report. Okay. Let us create a report, list report the same for the budget request and say approve. And let's create a report. Okay. So what we are going to do, we are going to create a property. So let's set a filter and I'll say approval status equals approve. Save. Done. If I reload here, if I come to this view, if I reload, budget request, sorry. Okay, there's a mismatch. So let us get back into our delete script. So it should be approved. Okay, so getting into workflow, approve. So it should be approved. Now let me reload it. Click on that. So approved. So coming over here. So here you can see we have one record which is saying, okay, this is approved. And I want to get this out. Okay, so all I have to do is to get into the other report and say, if I get into the design, okay, so budget request, all budget requests, getting into its properties, and I apply a filter saying approval status is not equal to approve. Save. So now if I reload it, okay, it should be not equal to approve or approval status is not. Save. Let me just reload it. Okay, so now let us assume this record is getting approved. If I click on approve, the record gets pulled out from this view and it reaches to the next view. So that is the kind of automation which can be done with Creator. Right. And this has been powered with Deluge. So here you can see this is in this point we have written a simple Deluge script which is updating the status, and based on the status which has been updated, we are moving the records to various views. So that is where the automation comes into play. So as we all know, computers do exactly what we say. They won't go out of the line, and there are a few key components for the automation. So like what we configured right now, we should tell the system what to do and when to do. Right. So here we have instructed the system saying when the status is getting approved, please remove this from this view and transfer it to the other view. So that is the what and when. So when is when the status is getting to approved, and what, please move the record from one view to another. So that is the key component of automation. When to do and what to do. Okay. So this when to do is very important. So that is where the workflow triggers actually comes into play. In Zoho Creator, we have two kinds of triggers for the workflow. So one is the record event, another one is the form event. Let us take an example of this record event and form event in detail. What we saw here is actually a custom action. We'll be taking a look at that in detail as well. Okay. So let us understand what are the automations which are available with respect to the creator's form. Okay. So getting into workflow, we can choose any of the workflows which we want. We have form workflows, schedules, approvals, payments, blueprint, report workflows, and functions. Okay, so I'm choosing a form workflow. So here again in the form workflow we have multiple triggers which can be harnessed. So here you can see we have the option to choose the work trigger. So we have record event and form event. Let us understand what a record event is and what a form event is. The record event, the actions when a record is getting activated or manipulated in the system. So that is where the record event comes into play. While we are creating a record, so when we say creating a record, there's no record, we are creating a new one into the system. While we are editing a record, while there's a record and we are editing a existing record, created or edited. So when we say created or edited, it is happening in both the time. So even when you are creating a new record, the automation will be triggered, and even while you are editing a record which is already created, it will be triggered. So it is a combination of both created and edited. Then we have deleted. Let us take an example. Let us say you are entering a new customer's data into the system and you want that to be updated in CRM as well, right? So in that case, the moment the record is being created in creator, we can trigger an integration flow saying, hey, I want this to be updated in CRM. Or in our case, here you can see, after we submit, so the budget approval request, when we are creating the budget approval request, we are not giving anything. We'll say beta and company name Zilka. Okay, I'll get the next one, Zilka, and date of commencement and data. Okay, the budget amount be 2.5 lakhs. Let's say it is rejected. We'll leave it as empty. Okay, so right now I'm not giving anything. I'm clicking submit. Once the record is created into the system understands, checks, and then allocates approvers to this. So this is the on created event. Okay, so let us say I want to edit. So here I'm getting it edited and I'm updating the status. I'll say approved and click on update. Now the record which was already there in the system is updated, so it is creating a separate flow that is edited. If I want to trigger certain action while I'm creating the record or on edition as well, so that is where the created and edited comes into play. Let us say on deletion, we may need to have certain records as a backup in a different third-party service, and we may have to clean up the data in our creator application in a periodic manner. In that case, we can go for deletion. Every time you delete a record, you can trigger an API call to the third-party service and transfer the record over there. Okay, so that is with the creation and deletion. Okay, there are next set of actions. So and every workflow which we are configuring for a particular event is pertain to that alone. So if you are configuring a workflow for on creation, it will not be getting triggered on edition. Okay, if it's configured on created or edited, it will be triggered in both the scenario, but it will not get triggered on deleted. So the deletion will not get triggered. So every action which we are configuring for that particular record event will be pertained to that. And similarly, we have form workflows. We have field rules, load of the form, user input of field, validation, and on successful submission. So the field rules are again click and configurable workflows. So we all know Deluge is an abstracted language where the front end entirely has been abstracted by the platform and we have to write business logics, right? Again, we are abstracting the code which can be used to automate with the help of click and configurable workflows, right? We can hide form, show form, enable form, disable form, trigger notifications. All of this can be done using the field roles. So that is the abstraction of Deluge. Okay. Then we have load of the form. So the load of the form is where the script gets executed the moment the form loads. The action will be, if I click here, the form is getting loaded, and at that point, before even the user starts interacting with the form, there will be certain actions which will be triggered, and that is the load of the form. So one such example can be checking if the user who is trying to access has authorization to this form or not. Okay, so we can write a separate authorization list and inform the user, hey, you don't have the permission to access this, or redirect them to a different page. Okay, and then we have the user input. So when we are creating a form, so let us say I'm entering the details as project name. So the moment I say Charlie, okay, after I'm feeding in the data to that field, there will be certain actions to be triggered. Okay, so those are the ones which fall under the on user input of the field. And then we have validations on form submission. When we say validations on form submission, the form is filled completely, and we are submitting the data to the system. The system is analyzing the data and checking if the data which has been entered is proper. Okay, if there is any mismatch which is available, that will be notified and the submission process will be cancelled. So this is the action which is being happening on click of the submit button and before the record gets created in the system. So that is the on validation. Then comes the on successful submission. When we say on successful submission, everything will be successfully created, and there will be a record which is there in the system. So it is both created or edited. Okay, on successfully a completion of edition, on successful completion of creation, or both. Okay, so that is where the successful submission comes into play. Okay, so these are the workflows. Now let us go ahead and understand how Deluge can be used. Okay, before we get into that, let us try to understand the custom functions, because we'll be using custom functions a lot. Okay, so we just discussed this. Then comes the what to do. So when to do is the event triggers, which we just discussed. So the record event and form event, when we have to trigger this. And now we have to understand what we want to do. We want to send an email, send a SMS or success message with that URL, show, hide, disable, enable fields, set field values, integrate with Zoho and third-party apps. And that is not all. We can trigger custom Deluge actions as well. We can write our own logics. We can implement that with the help of Deluge and get it triggered. We also have the custom action. Okay, so when we say custom action, that is where the custom functions comes into play. This is the custom action, the button which we created, right? So where we just created a button and associated it to a Deluge script. So that is where the custom action comes into play. Okay. So this is a Deluge builder, and these are the things which can be done. So we can write conditions, we can write data access, we can write client functions, we can have miscellaneous like variables, function call, sending mail, a success message, so let us take a look at the look at this demo. Okay, let us talk about the custom functions as well in parallel. Okay, getting over here, let me click on escape. We have functions. So normally the reason I'm showing you the functions is functions will be helping us to execute the Deluge script then and there. Okay, same way how we use the Deluge tryout, we have the option to verify our actions by executing the script immediately. all the actions which I'm doing in the custom function can be written in the form workflows as well. So here, if I say we get into form workflows, on successful submission, you can see the same Deluge script has been written. We'll be using the custom functions section as well, so that it will be easy for us to understand what the how the script works. Okay, so let me create the function. I'll give a function as sample. Let me create a function. So this Deluge builder, as we know, is drag and droppable. So here you can see all the features which we discussed are there. We have conditions, we have data access, we have miscellaneous, we have debug, list manipulations, and map manipulations, collections, web data, okay, XPath, everything. So if you want anything, all you have to do is to just drag and drop. So let me just drag and drop a if condition over here, and I'll be provided with the syntax. And Deluge builder is actually predictive and syntax assistant. So we can say it as syntax assisted and autocomplete. Okay, so here I can simply go ahead and provide all the options. So let's say from the we can give anything. So let us say x equal to 10, and I'll say, so you can see it is automatically suggesting me what are the values which can be uploaded over there. Okay, so I'll say okay, x equal to 10. Right, so that is how easy it is to work with the Deluge builder in Zoho Creator. Deluge builder is actually drag and droppable, and it is very easy for us to understand. Okay. While creating a Deluge script, we have certain components. So let us take a look at that. Let me create a new function. So here you can see these are the components which we have to take care while we are creating our Deluge script. The first one is the function name. So the function name is actually the name which we provide for that particular function to make it identifiable. Okay, so for example, let us say in our case here, we want to approve the approve that particular record, or let us say we want to reject that particular record. So I'll say the name. So I'll say reject. Okay. So then I'll choose in which language I'm going to write this function. I can write it in Deluge, Java, or Node.js, based on the functionality which you are trying to achieve. So if you are more interested in bringing in a feature which you have developed in Java into Creator, you can use Java or Node.js as well. So we are going to stick to Deluge. While you are using Java or Node.js, you will have certain restrictions. The default namespace will be always default, and the return type will be always collection, and you can only pass in string arguments. Okay, but when you go to Deluge, you have the option to choose the namespace whichever you want. So the namespace is like grouping the functions in basic how to say, grouping the functions in basic folders kind of. Okay, so these namespaces, we can create multiple namespaces and we can place the records there. Okay, and then we have the return type of that particular function. So we have void, int, float, string, boolean, date, map, list, and collection. Okay, so these are the return types which we have. Okay, so let us put it as void. I don't want it to be returning anything, and if you want to pass any arguments, we can pass the same. Okay, so let's go ahead and create the function. So now the function is created. Okay, so we have a function with the name of reject. So what we are going to do is we are going to use this to reject the budget approval. Okay, so all we are going to do is I'll say, so let us say collection request. So this collection is the object which fetches the entire record as it is. Okay, so this normally points out to the record ID. So I have said collection request. So the entire object or the entire record has been fetched in as a collection. So now I'll say request dot approval status. Okay, or we can give the ID. So collection, let us say ID. So let's say fetch is equal to from the budget request form, ID is equal to ID. Fetch dot approval status is equal to rejected. So what I have done is I am passing in the record ID of that particular record as an input. I am just fetching that data from creator and updating it. We'll be discussing about this fetch and update in detail in our upcoming session. I'm just giving it as a prequel. Okay. So now let us line number 4. Sorry, it's equal to. Okay. So clicking on done. If I get into the form workflows, or let us get into the reports. Getting into the design, same budget request. I'll go for all budget requests. Configuring the fields for, sorry, I have to create the button first. Let's get into actions. Let's create and let's say reject. Let's create a workflow. Add a new action. Let's run a Deluge script this time. Let us run a function instead of creating our own. We already have a function created. So let us go ahead and add the reject. So we have passed one argument, which is ID. So I'm going to choose the ID, which is the system field, the record ID. I'll click on save, click on done. I'll create this and then I'll configure the fields for web. It's rejected. So here, if I reload. So now we have one button for approve, which we created from the report directly, and we have one for reject, which we have written a custom function and brought in. So if I click on reject now, so here you can see the approval status has been chosen as rejected. Okay, so this is how we can automate. So this update. So if you can notice, we have actually fetched the data from a creator form. So here, functions. If I go for reject, okay, here you can see the way we wrote this and the way we wrote this will be different. Okay, so if I get into the actions and if I get into approve, edit the workflow. So here you can see the way this workflow, the workflow for approve is written and the way the workflow for reject is written is two different things. Okay, so there are scenarios where we may directly go for the regular update, and there are scenarios where we may go for the fetch and update. So normally when we want to manipulate the data in a different form with the help of certain actions done in this current form, we will be going for fetch and update. Or if you want to update the status based on certain aggregated values, we will have to fetch and update. So let us understand how fetch and populate works. Okay, let us talk about the functions. Yeah, so as we know, functions are scripts that can trigger certain specific process. Okay, these are the places where we can reuse the function. So we can use it on click of a button or a report, specific page, specific data time, submission. The functions are not just pertain to these. We can use function pretty much everywhere. We can we have the option to create the Deluge script in Creator. Okay. These are a few samples. So we have the option to send order confirmation reminders, estimate and update the delivery process, go through the list of products and determine the availability, periodic updates, checks and backups which has to be done. Okay. We have a lot of built-in functions for each and every data type. We have built-in functions for text, we have built-in functions for date, time, collections, numbers. Okay. And this is how the functions normally works. We gave input, so the argument which we passed on for that reject option, which is the record ID, which was used to fetch the data, and then the output was produced. So this is how the function normally works. We know how to create a custom function. Okay, so these are the basic elements of custom function, and this is the syntax. Okay, so this is important. So the syntax of a function is a bit important. We have to understand what this name represents. So here you can see it is saying void reject and int id. So what is that? How this works, right? So this has to be understood. So the first thing which we place over here is actually the return type. Okay. So in this example, we have given void as the return type. So in case if I want this to be returning as a string, I have to go and say string. Okay, and now if I'm putting any return type other than void, I have to return something. If I'm not returning something, the function will throw me an error. So what I'm representing here is what will be returned. So if I have given it as an int, I'll be getting an integer value as an output. Okay, so this is the return type which we have to be careful about. So this return type will allow the output of the function to be carried over to an external variable. So let us say this function is returning me saying hi. Right now, if I am calling this function inside a Deluge script, this output hi can be stored in a external variable, and from there the output can be carried forward. So that is the return type. Okay, if you don't want to return anything, we can simply say void. So the void function will not return anything. It will just perform certain action and then go smooth. Okay. Then we have send email. So when we say send email, we will understand how or what action or what is the name given to that particular function. So the send email is just a name. Here we have given the name as reject. Whatever name you want, you can give it for based on the business logic. It is better to give a proper identifiable name so that we will be it will be easy for us to identify the code and call it whenever it is needed. And even if we want to do a maintenance, we can go for the custom function. Okay. The main reason we go for a custom function is the code reusability. To say that. So let us say there's a similar process which is being handled in multiple scenarios, multiple locations. There's a update function which has to be done, the approval and reject function, and it has to be done for some 10 20 forms. We don't have to go and write the workflows in all the 20 forms. We can write it in one single location and call this function and feed in the arguments accordingly. So this will help us to work better when we are trying to update our code. So while we want to maintain our code and we want to make some enhancements, we don't have to go and do it in all 20 places. We do it in one single place and the same gets reflected with all 20 locations. So that is where the functions comes into play. Okay. Then we have discussed about the return type, the name of the function, and then the arguments. So this is the input which has been passed on to the function, and based on this input, the function gets function performs certain actions, right? There are multiple types of input. So we have string input, as we know. We discussed in detail about the data types which are available in Deluge. We have string, we have integer, decimal, boolean, we have date, time, date, time, everything, right? So this is the actual syntax of a function. Okay. Sometimes you may have to call the function along with its namespace. So if you have given a default namespace while we create, so you remember I showed you the namespace. If it's a default namespace, you don't have to add the namespace over here. But if it's a namespace specific, or if you are grouping the function inside certain namespace, you have to provide the namespace along with the function. Okay. So this is how the function actually works. We give the arguments and we get the return type based on our requirement. And Deluge has a maximum execution limit of 50,000 lines of execution, 50,000 lines of codes per execution. And if your business case warrants it, we can increase that count by talking to our team. So let us understand the fetch part which we have done here. So we have clearly understood what the function is and what are deluge. So let us understand what this fetch is and how we are going to handle the fetch. Okay. Uh, so fetch is actually getting the record from a form. So let us say we are entering the details of a customer, and we want the we are entering the details of the order, and we want the customer's details to be fetched in from the customer details form. In that case, we can write a simple fetch query, and we can get the data of the customer based on any key which we have. So for example, let us say we have a mobile number of the customer, and we want the customer's details to be pulled in to the pulled into the order form. This can be achieved with the help of deluge. This can be achieved with the help of fetch. Okay. While we are fetching a record, we have to follow certain syntax. So first we have to define which form we are going to fetch the data from, followed by the criteria. Okay, and then we are going to assign the output to a variable. So here you can see we are actually fetching the data from the budget request form, where I'm saying the record ID is going to be the ID which I'm passing into the system, right? So here in this record, if I click on reject and this record, so if I click on info fetch dot id, save, and if I reload and execute, you can see the record ID of this particular record is being fed into the to that function. So here you can see this is the record ID which is being passed on as an argument to this function. Okay, so we have to first define from which location we are going to fetch the data from, followed by the criteria. So this is right now I have given the criteria as ID. If I want to pass on a different criteria, let us say I want to fetch all the requests, all the records which are having the requesters request approved. So let us try that. I'll just comment this out. Let's go and say fetch equal to from the budget request form, where approval status is equal to approved. I'll say info fetch. Okay, let us execute it now. So let me execute. I'll click on submit. So here you can see it is showing 3 records are actually in the approved status. So if you can go ahead and check, let me escape, click. So here you can see we have 3 records, and the fetch operation is providing me with the record IDs of all the 3 records which are there, right? So this is with the fetch, okay? So first one is the variable name in which we are going to store the output. Then we have the form name, okay? Then we have the criteria, okay? So this is the form name and this is the criteria, okay? So the criteria is just the how to say, the field name and the operation which has to be done against an expression. In our case here, you can see the approval status has been tagged along as approved, okay? So this is the criteria, and then there are 2 types of fetching: static fetching and dynamic fetching, okay? So let us talk about static fetching. So here this one has been this here you can see the criteria against which the record is going to be matched is preset. So let us say you want to fetch the records against certain email ID. So and you are going to configure it as surendra.sr@zoho.com. So every time you are running this request, it's going to be fetching the records which are matching to this particular criteria alone. So that is the static fetching. So when it comes to dynamic fetching, you will be passing on an argument. So let us say this case. So here I'll simply hide it. I'll just enable it. So here you can see we will not know which record ID we are going to pass. So if I execute now, if I close, and if I come over here and get into the budget request, so if I click on reject now, so you can see I'm getting a record ID of 37007, while if I click on reject in the next one, I'm getting a different record ID. So I'll not know which record I'm going to use. So that is where the dynamic fetching comes into play. So the arguments passed on will be dynamic, and based on that one, based on the dynamic value, we will be so based on the dynamic argument which we are passing, we will be performing the actions on that particular function. Okay, so that is with the dynamic function. And then comes the lookup. So let us assume we are going to fetch the data based on a lookup field. So before we do that, we should understand the types of lookups. So we have 3 types of lookups. We have unidirectional, bidirectional, and self lookup. When we talk about unidirectional, it is one record getting associated with another record. So there will be a data transfer from the form A to form B. The best example will be the approvers list from the employee form, right? When we are trying to fetch the approvers list, it's actually getting the data from the employees form via the lookup. That is one-to-one, and in our case we have multiple approvers, which will make it as one-to-many. Okay, so when we say bidirectional, if we want to check how many requests are there for that particular approver and how many approvals are being done, or so if you want to establish a bidirectional relationship, example will be if we choose a single approver, we would like to know all the requests which are there under that approver. And similarly, if we choose a request, all the approvers who are associated to that request has to be obtained. So that actually constitutes the bidirectional lookup, and self lookup is where the lookup actually looks the data from the same form. Okay, and we should know the lookup field is actually working with the working with the record ID. So its data type is always integer, and the lookup's output is always record ID. Okay, so as we know, lookup always tags itself to the record ID, and from that record ID, it will be fetching the data or other parts of that particular record. Okay, so this is how we actually fetch. Let us say uh, here you can see we have multiple approvers. So let me go ahead and choose this one as well. So let us get out of this function. Let me create a new function. We call it as approver list. Okay, we select this default namespace. We create the function. Let us zoom in. I'll say fetch equal to here we are going to pass the record ID, right? So int ID. From the budget request form, we'll say ID is equal to ID. Okay. So from here, if I say info approver list fetch dot approvers. Okay, so here you can see this approvers is actually showing us the name of the person, but when I'm trying to create the function, so if I say fetch dot approvers, it is showing me as begin list. Although the data which is being displayed to me in the front end is the name, so this is a lookup field actually. So if I can take you to the edit mode, if I say cancel, done, cancel, and if we get into the employees form, open the form builder. Sorry, we have to get into the budget request form. You can see this approver is actually a multi-select lookup field. Okay, so let's get into the custom approvals. Now, if I save, okay, let us add a new custom action over here. Budget request, all budget requests, and let us go ahead and create an action. Let's create show approver. I'll give it a show for simplicity, and I'll create the workflow, creating a new action, delete script, run the function, and we call it as approver list, and we pass the record ID. Click on save, done, create, configure fields for web, bring in show. Okay, so now if I reload it, if I click here, so here you can see, although the approvers are Mark and John, I've been provided with the output as the record ID of the employee details record. If I want to see the names, or I can go ahead and so now we have the approvers, and if I want to fetch the details of the records which are matching a certain approver, all I have to do is to match it against a record ID. So here you can see, if I copy this, so this will be Mark, and let's go ahead and see. Instead of this, let us say approver list dot contains okay, can save and execute. If I reload here, if I click on show, okay, it's showing me. Let me zoom out. So if I click on show, it is showing me 2. Okay. So the reason it is showing me 2 records is we have changed the criteria. So if I bring it back, ID is equal to ID. And if I click on show, here you can see the record ID of Mark has been shown to us. Okay. So this is how we can use lookup in Deluge. Okay. So while we are fetching data with lookup, we have to match that field against the record ID. Okay. In our case, we are trying to fetch the approvers list, right? So this approval list is getting its data from employees. Okay. So if we are trying to fetch the data, we have to mark the approvers list against the employees. So far we have seen about Deluge and what are the various functions which are there in Deluge, how Deluge can be used in Zoho Creator, and what are the automations that can be built, and how easy it is to build various automations, right? In our upcoming session, you can I'll give you an overview of what we are going to do. We are going to understand about the subforms concept in Deluge. So today we have looked at about the lookup, how lookup works and all. Subform is another important relationship component which has to be clearly understood to make our applications even better. Then we'll be also talking about the integrations capabilities of Deluge. So how Deluge can be used to integrate among the products of Zoho, and how we can integrate Deluge with other third-party services and all. So all this can be discussed in the next session. We'll also take a look at the exceptions which can be handled in Deluge, the try-catch method, and how we can produce meaningful exceptions with Deluge. Okay. So hope to see you all in the next session. Thank you.